we enjoyed being back in Sintra, our accommodations were a little disappointing. We walked to the bus station and caught a ride to the center of town. While the National Palace dates back to Moorish times, most of what you see today is from the 15th and 16th centuries. This oldest surviving royal palace in Portugal is still used for official receptions. It housed royalty until the 1910 rebellion that established the current republic. The old part of town is small and compact, but the two main attractions, the Pina Palace and the Moorish Castle, sit high above it. The palace was built on the site of a 16th century monastery that housed followers of Saint Jerome, the hermit monk. This high perch allowed the monks the isolation they desired. The spot was also a popular pilgrimage destination for its statue of Our Lady of the Feathers. Pina means feather, hence the palace's name. In 1498, King Manuel was up here enjoying the view when he spied Vasco da Gama sailing up the river, returning safely from his great voyage. To celebrate and give thanks, the king turned what was a humble wooden monastery into a fine stone palace. In the 19th century, Portugal had a very romantic prince, German-born Prince Ferdinand, a contemporary and cousin of Bavaria's Mad King Ludwig, who built Neuschwanstein Castle. Ferdinand was also a cousin to England's Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband. He hired a German architect to build a fantasy castle, mixing elements of German and Portuguese style. He ended up with a crazy mix of Gothic towers, Renaissance domes, and Moorish minarets. You enter the palace through a Moorish archway with alligator decor. At the base of the stairs, you'll see King Ferdinand, who built this castle from 1840 until 1885 when he died. Though German, he did much to preserve Portugal's architectural and artistic heritage. This courtyard was the cloister area of the original monastery. The palace is composed of several small rooms gathered in 2 stories around this courtyard. The king enjoyed cutting-edge comforts, including the shower tub imported from England and even a telephone. The early 1900s were a rocky time for Portugal's royal family. The king and his eldest son were assassinated in 1908. His youngest son, Manuel II, became king until he and other members of the royal family fled Portugal during the 1910 revolution. This altarpiece in the family chapel is of French craftsmanship and was completed in 1532. The marble in this room has been painted to resemble wood paneling. This was the Queen's bedroom, and from its balcony you have great views of Lisbon. The new wing is a spacious addition to the original series of rooms around the cloister and includes the apartments of the last king and the fantastically furnished noble's room. The tour ends in the kitchen area of the palace. After exiting the palace, we enjoyed a delightful downhill walk through the gardens. The lush, captivating, and sprawling gardens are dotted with romantic surprises, chapels, a temple, lakes, giant sequoia trees, and exotic plants. A 30-minute stroll takes you to the lower park gate, where you can catch a bus up to the old Moorish fort. While originally built by the Moors and captured by Christian forces in 1147, most of the current castle was reconstructed in the 19th century. The grounds below the castle even contain Christian burial sites dating from before the time of the Moors. It was quite windy during our visit, and Vicky chose to remain below in the lower section of the castle, while I took the climb to the upper ramparts to get great views. For centuries, Sintra, just 15 miles northwest of Lisbon, was the summer escape of Portugal's kings. Those with money and a desire to be close to royalty built their homes and palaces amid luxurious gardens in the same neighborhood. Lord Byron, who resided here for a time, called this bundle of royal fancies and aristocratic dreams a glorious Eden. Europe's westernmost tip at Cabo da Roca is nearby, as are several resort towns. Leaving Sintra, we drove to the coastal village of Peniche. This town is noted for its long, sandy beaches and some of the best surfing in Europe. The area is known as the European Pipeline. We picnicked in the car and then drove across a narrow peninsula of sand to an area to observe some intense wave action. Obidos was founded by Celts in about 300 BC and then became a Phoenician trade center. The name is Roman in origin and means citadel or fortified city. After the fall of Rome, the Visigoths took control. The Moors then established a fortress here in 713, and Portugal's first king, Afonso Henriques, retook the city in 1148. Much of the walls and the castle keep date from the 14th century. It is now preserved as a national monument. The Hotel Real d'Obidos was just outside the wall. Originally constructed in the 14th century, it was the home of a wealthy family in the 18th century. This four-star hotel was one of the best places we have stayed in all of Europe. Covered with medieval decor, even the attendants wore uniforms reflecting that period. The breakfast spread was out of this world, as were the views from our window. We began our walk in Obidos at the 16th century aqueduct and fountain. We entered town through the main gate in the 14th century wall. Once inside the gate, there are scenes related to the town's history, depicting centuries of battles and religion in blue and white tiles. Tiles like these covered the entire face of the walls here until the 1755 quake shook them down. Exiting the gate, you are immediately confronted with a split in the road. The main road through town is the one on the left. We chose to take the lower road and return by the upper road. The whitewashed walls help keep things cool during the summer months. The blue and white trim was designed to mark property lines. The Church of St. Peter has a fine, newly restored Baroque altar covered with Brazilian gold leaf, which contrasts with the otherwise Gothic interior built before the 1755 earthquake. The Maltese-type crosses carved into the rock throughout the church are a constant reminder that this fine building was brought to you by your friends in the Order of Christ. Turning uphill and to the left, we rejoin the upper road at the main square. The square fronts the Church of St. Mary. The column overlooking the square is the pillory where bad boys were tied up and endured the punishment meted out by town leaders. The large terracotta jars holding geraniums originally held olive oil. The walls of St. Mary are covered in blue and white 17th century tile. The ceilings of the three naves are covered with hand-painted wood. Continuing up the main road, you arrive at the castle, which is now a fancy hotel. On January 11, 1148, Afonso Henriques, the first king of Portugal, led a two-pronged attack to liberate the town from the Moors. Afonso attacked the main gate at the other end of town where we entered, while the Moorish ruler huddled here in his castle. Meanwhile, a second band of Afonso's men, disguised as cherry trees, snuck up the steep hillside behind the castle. We shortened our walk back to the hotel by exiting through this gate, which was immediately across from our hotel. The next day we drove to the coast. We stopped at Alcobaça to view the monastery of Santa Maria, Portugal's largest church and its best Gothic building. Afonso Henriques began construction in 1178 after taking a nearby town from the Moors. The first monks arrived in 1228. It contains the tombs of Dom Pedro and Inez, Portugal's most tragic romantic couple. They rest feet to feet so that on Judgment Day they will rise and immediately see each other again. Pedro's father, King Afonso, refused to allow the two to marry. They did anyway, and Afonso had Inez murdered. Pedro rebelled against his father and took the throne. Legend has it he killed the two murderers and ate their hearts after exhuming her body and making them kiss her rotting hand. We then drove to the seacoast town of Nazaré. The town got its name because a black Madonna, thought to have been transferred from Nazareth to Merida, Spain in the 4th century, was brought here in 711 by the last Visigothic king of Portugal. Nazaré is now a popular summer beach resort. The older part of Nazaré, which is called Sitio, sits high atop a bluff at the north end of the beach. You reach this area by taking a funicular that was built in 1889 by a student of Eiffel. From the edge of the bluff, you can survey Nazaré and its golden beach stretching all the way to the new harbor. In the distance are the mostly uninhabited Berlinga Islands. The pillar on the Belvedere is a stone memorial to Vasco da Gama, erected in 1497 after he stopped here before leaving Europe for India. The tiny chapel next to the monument sits on the spot where the Black Madonna hid in the rocks for 400 years, waiting for the Moors to leave and for the Christians to return. The main square in Sitio is full of shops and vendors selling their wares. The town's main church, Our Lady of Nazaré, was built in the 16th century, but has been restored by local donations. It is on the pilgrimage trail due to the Black Madonna located here. Hidden in nearby rocks during Muslim rule, its discovery in the 12th century led to the establishment of Nazaré. Today the church, with its gilded neoclassical interior and 17th century tiles from Delft, Netherlands, is popular for weddings and other family religious occasions. We stopped in the town of São Martinho de Porto and ate lunch in the car while enjoying the scenes around the bay. We drove down the coast on the Strada Atlantica to the lagoon of Óbidos before heading back to the hotel. Arriving back in Óbidos, we took this last opportunity to walk the medieval walls. We had good views of the town and surrounding countryside, but shortened our walk due to the high winds. We purchased a local pastry that we enjoyed once back at the hotel. After a brief nap, we headed to the cafe snack bar just outside town, where we enjoyed a massive meal of steak and monkfish. We had a wonderful conversation with two Brits who have retired to the Óbidos area. We will be saddened to leave this area tomorrow. way back to Spain, we pass the walled city of Estremoz, Portugal. It played a prominent role in Portuguese medieval history, but today is noted for its marble quarries. Portugal is the second leading exporter of marble behind Italy. In the rural areas of Portugal and Spain, we have noted many stork nests in trees and on electrical power poles. Elvas, Portugal, on the Spanish border boasts a four-tier, 130-foot tall aqueduct completed in 1622 and a star-shaped fortress that is currently being excavated. Our hotel in Merida was nothing to write home about, but it was close to the Roman ruins. The Church of Santa Eulalia venerates a 4th century Christian martyr. The front portico reuses part of the Roman temple dedicated to Mars. Even the Spaniards enjoy a good game of bowls. Remains of the San Lazaro aqueduct were visible down the street from our hotel. Merida had a chariot racetrack patterned after the Circus Maximus in Rome. It was built around 20 BC and would hold 30,000 spectators. Merida has been populated since prehistoric times. The Roman town was founded in 25 BC with the name of Emerita Augusta. Emperor Augustus awarded land in this area to reward members of his army. The town was assigned protection of a pass and a bridge over the Guadiana River. The city became the capital of the Lusitania province and one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire. Merida preserves more important ancient Roman monuments than any other city in Spain. The Visigoths maintained much of the city's splendor after the fall of Rome. After the Muslims' conquest in 713, the Arabs reused most of the old Roman buildings and expanded some, such as the Alcazaba. The city was brought under Christian rule in 1230. Napoleon destroyed many of the Roman artifacts when he invaded Spain in the early 1800s. The amphitheater was completed in 8 BC. It would hold 15,000 spectators. The external dimensions are 413 by 335 feet, and the floor measures 210 by 135 feet. This is one of 3 gates into the arena. It's suggested that one was used for the public, one was used for authorities, and one was used for victorious gladiators when they exited the arena. Of course, the ones that weren't victorious wouldn't be exiting this way. This block, which is opposite the entrance that the officials would have made, has an inscription to Augustus Caesar, dated in 16 AD. The theater is adjacent to the Colosseum. Unlike seating in the Colosseum, men and women sat in separate sections. Many of the plays performed in Roman theaters were Greek in origin, even though most Romans did not understand the Greek language. The sound wall is extremely well preserved. The theater was built between 16 and 15 BC by Marcus Agrippa, who was the son-in-law of Caesar Augustus. It was designed to seat 6,000 people. It was refurbished probably in 1st century AD by Trajan, and then again in the 330 ADs by Constantine I.
After it was abandoned over the centuries, it was covered by dirt except for the top 7 rows of seats. Legend has it that Moorish kings sat here to decide the fate of the city. It was called the site of the 7 chairs.
In most Roman theaters, the center niche held a statue of the current Caesar. It was designed so that the head could be removed to make way for each new ruler. This theater, however, has a statue of Caesar Augustus's wife, Livia. The sound wall was completed in the 1st century AD during renovations conducted by Emperor Claudius. The lower rows of seats show Roman brickwork. These seats would have been reserved for the town rulers and elite. The inscription on the lintel to the main entrance of the theater is dedicated to Marcus Agrippa, who was serving his 3rd term as tribunal counsel in the Lusitania province. Roman Merida had great wealth, as shown by this house with its floor mosaics and wall frescoes that are characteristic of well-to-do Roman homes. We rode a tourist tram that took us around the major sites of Merida, including the main Roman aqueduct, Los Milagros. Narration was entirely in Spanish, but it gave us a break from walking. The Temple of Diana marked the forum area of Roman Merida. The temple was built to Greek standards, 6 columns across and 13 columns deep. It was probably utilized for emperor worship rather than religious events. The Visigoths utilized it, as well as the Moors, who added the building in the back in the 7th century. A second temple, Portico de Foro, adjacent to the Temple of Diana, was located at the junction of the 2 major roads leading into Merida. Plaza España is a main gathering place for the locals. Plaza Romano is adjacent to the Alcazaba. This is the longest Roman bridge remaining in existence today. It is 762 meters long. Porta de la Via was the main gate into Roman Merida. The road that entered at this location went all the way through town and exited a gate that is now part of the cathedral by our hotel. The Alcazaba was built in 835 by the Moorish ruler from Cordova after a revolt by locals in 805. It was built on top of Roman and Visigothic ruins, and from its walls had commanding views of the Roman bridge over the Guadiana River. We enjoyed a wonderful 3-course meal for €10 at a street cafe called Lo Bodeguilla. A young couple sitting next to us was most helpful in selecting the desserts. After a short nap, we walked back to the forum area to view the Arch of Trajan. Built in the 1st century AD, it has a double arch construction. In driving from Merida to Avia, we traveled through farmland where pastures were divided with stone fences. We drove to a recommended overlook outside of Avia that is called the Four Posts. Vicky remained at the overlook while I hiked over to the base of the walls. Avila is consistently ranked among the top 10 walled cities in the world. Built from around 1100 AD on even more ancient ruins, Avila's fortified wall is the oldest, most complete, and best preserved in Spain. Arriving in Segovia, we first went to the overlook at the Veracruz Church. Segovia sits at more than 3,000 feet in elevation and boasts a thrilling Roman aqueduct, a grand cathedral, and an historic castle. The Roman aqueduct was just outside our hotel room. Built by Trajan to supply water to this military base, the main section of this 9-mile-long aqueduct remaining today is 2,500 feet long, 100 feet high, and has 118 granite arches. It was in use until the 19th century. Segovia lies in a beautiful setting of mountains. This Moorish home, called the House of the Thousand Beaks, is on the main drag called Calle de Cervantes. Plaza de San Martin contains a statue of Juan Bravo, who revolted against the Habsburg ruler Charles V in 1521. In the 15th century, many noble families fought each other. When Ferdinand and Isabella took the throne, they forced each family to lower their family towers to an equal height. Plaza Mayor was once the scene of executions, religious theater, and bullfights. Today, it is the local gathering place. Segovia's cathedral, built in Renaissance times between 1525 and 1768, was Spain's last major Gothic building. The Alcazar, a medieval fortified palace, has served many functions. A palace for the monarchs of Castile, a prison for 200 years, a royal military school, and after a fire in 1862, a museum.